Hello everyone, and welcome to our presentation on A Leader for Your Time. Tim Cook will be presented by Asher Dainchera, Nathan Ivester, Ibun Olajan, Christine Southsider, and myself, Tanya Themes. The sidelines are not where you want to live your life. The world needs you in the arena is a famous quote by Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. Today we will first be focusing on the leadership criteria, such as our development process and our selection process for our leader that we have chosen. We will then focus a little bit on the background information, such as some of Tim Cook's famous key successes, some of his background information, and a little bit of his key contributions to Apple. We will then focus on Tim Cook and his leadership style, how he compares to our criteria that we have developed, some of the similarities, and some of the gaps that may occur in our leadership development.
Our group took a survey amongst ourselves to decide what leadership traits were important to each of us. We then combined our list and selected the top 6. Throughout this course, we have discussed all of these leadership qualities and why they are important. When researching Tim Cook, many of the articles we read spoke to the fact that Tim Cook is a great leader with a quiet command about himself. He holds himself accountable and involves those closest around him in developing the strategy that has placed Apple back on the top echelon of the IT industry. According to Cook, motivation is also key to being a great leader, and leading millennials in today's work environment can be a struggle. Millennials place importance on many things today that some of our older generation do not, such as work-life balance. Millennials want to have a life outside of work, and Apple has continued to do such a great job with it. Why did we choose the 6 qualities that we chose? We all felt pretty strongly that these 6 qualities or strengths were the foundation needed to becoming a great leader. We agree that there are so many other qualities that a great leader must have to be successful, but we wanted to build a foundation. An organization's successes rely heavily on its leaders. A good leader should be able to empower those around them to give their best and to strive to make the organization the best it can be. A good leader needs to be able to communicate appropriately and motivate others towards a mutually accepted goal or vision. Leaders need to focus on the why of an organization so that they can focus on a much larger picture to help shape future endeavors of the organization. Lead from within your team. Don't lead from the front. Don't be afraid to get into the trenches so you know exactly what your staff are dealing with on a daily basis. This is where leadership style comes into play. Every good leader has his or her own leadership style, and understanding that this is very important. One thing we learned in this class was that a good leader can set a good example simply by the way they look, talk, and interact with others. The decisions that a leader makes will set apart those as being either a great leader or a bad leader by their employees. A good leader must control their emotions and temperament, or they could lose trust and respect. Every good leader has his or her own leadership style. They must know their own strengths and weaknesses and be able to own up to areas that they need to improve upon. A good leader also needs to be empathetic to their staff. People want to feel like those around them care about their thoughts and concerns. A good leader recognizes that their staff has feelings and they want to be heard and understood. An empathetic leader is a person who leads by example and builds a culture of trust within the organization. Leaders put people at ease and listen to them intently. They understand that only when people feel comfortable will they share their concerns and communication flaws without the fear of retribution. A good leader needs to be able to communicate appropriately and motivate others towards that goal or vision. Creativity must be encouraged, and a good leader can help foster this by being a visionary. By creating a vision for an organization, leaders can challenge their employees to be creative and to come up with how to make a vision a reality. Lead from within your team. A visionary leader is one that sees the potential for the organization and then understands what it takes to get there.
This section of the presentation will be focused on Tim Cook, where we'll be talking about his background, successes, leadership style, and other admirable traits. Now over to Tanya.
We will now be focusing on some of Tim Cook's background information and some of his key successes at Apple. In 1982, Tim Cook graduated from Auburn University with his bachelor's in industrial engineering. Just 6 years later, in the year 1988, Tim Cook graduated from Duke University with his master's in business administration. 12 years later was when Tim Cook achieved one of his key successes at Apple. He was the Senior Vice President of Worldwide Operations. Looking at the timeline listed here on this slide, we can see that in 2004, Tim Cook was listed as the short-term CEO of Apple. Just 1 year later, Tim Cook was promoted from the Senior Vice President of Worldwide Operations to the Chief Operating Officer of Apple. 4 years later, Tim Cook was then titled the short-term CEO of Apple once again, and 2 years later, in 2011, Tim Cook was listed as the Chief Executive Officer of Apple. I will now be passing it off to Nathan, who will be discussing some of Tim Cook's admirable traits.
Aside from the criteria that our group deemed to be important to each and every one of us, Tim Cook also displays some other admirable traits that set him apart as a leader. Tim Cook displays a calm and steady persona. He is a known workaholic, and instead of raising his voice to team members during daily interactions or meetings, he instead chooses to lead with a line of questioning. This line of questioning is well known within the Apple community. He will question team members extensively and continuously to ensure that their ideas are on point and they fully understand the ideas that they are presenting. This provides clear expectations of what he expects and instills a perfectionist mentality without demanding perfection. This allows him to take a step back to view concepts that are being presented and provides him with the ability to find potential flaws or solutions that those presenting the ideas may be missing because they're too close to the problem. Cook understands the importance of collaboration between team members, including himself. He looks for others with conflicting viewpoints that can challenge our ideas to further grow. He understands that real innovation comes with collaboration, and we must, as leaders, rely on others to grow and build our ideas in our business. He understands the importance of seeking out an additional set of eyes or ears to find flaws or solutions that we may be missing because we're too close to the ideas we are presenting. Because after all, he understands that Apple is stronger as a team than as a group of individuals. Tim Cook is trustworthy. He understands that he cannot steer the Apple ship by himself. Instead, he chooses to lead with delegation. He surrounds himself with successful and capable individuals that are experts in their field, and thus he trusts them completely. He understands that there is only so much time to operate in a day, and we must rely on others to effectively get tasks done. He allows others the ability to own problems, so he does not get too deep into the weeds and excessive details. He understands that others may actually be stronger in areas than he is. Tim Cook stayed true to himself. After being selected as permanent CEO, many criticized his persona and methodology, saying he would not find success after taking over for Steve Jobs. He could have easily followed in Jobs' approach of being an authoritarian, demanding, fiery individual. Instead, he stayed true to himself and played to his own strengths to lead Apple to new horizons in a way that only he could. Now over to Asher for our leadership analysis.
In this part of the presentation, I will be introducing the leadership analysis. In this slide, I will be talking about the comparison between our leadership criteria to Tim Cook's actual leadership and seeing how they stack up. So in terms of being an excellent communicator, Tim Cook encourages employees to communicate openly. He stresses not only open communication, but open collaboration, so much that early on as the CEO of Apple, he fired Scott Forstall, who ran the iOS under Steve Jobs, for not conforming with the new communication direction Apple was heading towards. And that was a big deal. And it showed that Tim Cook was very much determined to change the culture at Apple to becoming more collaborative and more open in terms of availability from the higher-ups to the lower employees. In terms of being empathetic, Cook encourages an empathetic work environment. And in 2016, during a lot of political divisions, as we remember, he took the initiative to write a memo to all his employees, asking them to work together and respect each other despite political differences. As it goes with strategicness, Tim Cook's strategic leadership goal as the new CEO of Apple was to focus primarily on existing products and build stronger employee relations to reach success, which he has stuck to. In terms of being a visionary, we know that Steve Jobs is known as the big visionary of Apple. Tim Cook is a bit more reserved or cautious about entering new product categories, and that has brought on occasional criticism by analysis in the industry. We're almost there. Accountability. Tim Cook recognizes that when leaders keep their promises to their consumers, that the company and essentially himself will be held accountable when these promises are not met, and he takes that seriously. Lastly, being a motivator. Cook is inspiring and motivational. His leadership style focuses on making sure his employees feel valued. He often recognizes, thanks, and celebrates his teams on his own personal social media platforms. In this slide, I will be comparing Tim Cook and Steve Jobs' different leadership styles. I think it's important to look at a predecessor's unique way of leadership and seeing what they've learned from their previous mentor and what they have decided to change. I think that as we go through this slide, you will see how different Tim Cook and Steve Jobs are and the things that you can find in similarities in. So when Steve Jobs passed away in 2011 and Tim Cook took over, many people were weary about how Apple would fare with the new change. Cook worked under Steve Jobs in 1988 until Jobs' death, and he was known as the operations guy and solved a lot of problems with Apple's uneven supply. Steve Jobs was known as the innovative co-creator of Apple, and he was a much more authoritative leader than Cook, while Cook is a more democratic leader. Tim Cook values transparency and values the advice of people within the company who know more about certain things than he does. Steve Jobs led Apple with the more intense and more prickly style of leadership. He was very focused on making insanely good products, and the employees were mostly there to only facilitate that goal. Steve Jobs would make people work on Christmas Day or call people back mid-vacation due to last-minute changes on a product design or whatnot. Tim Cook, however, is a much more calm, methodical, and quietly persuasive leader. He and Steve Jobs are both perfectionists, but in terms of how Tim Cook relates his need for perfection, is much more different that of Steve Jobs. Tim Cook is more concerned about the overall health of the company, and it's concerned about everything and not just the insanely good product design. He relates more to his employees on a personal level, and he understands that social responsibility is so important to improve labor conditions, being aware of diversity, being aware of the labor force and how his employees outside of the U.S. are being treated, and other social advocacy. And he understands that employees want to work in a company that cares about these things, and it's in creating not only a better look for the company, but to ensure that his employees are being taken care of. And both Tim Cook and Steve Jobs had high expectations for the company, and they both led Apple and lead Apple in different ways, but both of them lead Apple in a way that is brilliant in their own ways, and both have shaped Apple in a unique way. So as a leader, it's important to, take the parts of leadership that you've seen from your, mentor that has worked well, and take parts that you don't think work so well, and, modify it to fit your own leadership style. And that is what Tim Cook has done. Since taking over as CEO in 2011, Tim Cook has had several successes over the years. He has increased the company's market capitalization by more than $1 trillion. Apple is still leading in its market, and competitors are still catching up. Apple has increased its stock, and the company has sold over 300 million devices worldwide. Cook has focused quite a bit on social responsibility and has promoted LGBT rights, corporate diversity, environmental support, and many more social efforts like philanthropy, renewable energy, and improving manufacturing conditions abroad. Although Cook is known to be a bit more reserved, he has succeeded in pushing out some of the most notable new products in the last decade, such as the Apple Watch, AirPods, Siri, and many different upgrades on the Apple iPhone iOS. I recently purchased an iPhone in 2020. I was a previous Android user, and so moving towards Apple was very daunting to me, but it was a very easy curve to learn. The synchronicity of my Mac, which I'm recording on, and my phone has been such a great seamless connection, and I love how user-friendly the iPhone is, and I love the new upgrades. Every upgrade is beneficial to the product. Sometimes phones get upgraded and you don't really understand why the phone is being upgraded, and or the features that are added are not beneficial or add nothing to the phone. But in terms of the iPhone, I think that Apple has done such a great job in all their different divisions, and especially in iOS. And I am so excited to see what Tim Cook does for the future of Apple. Thank you.
Most people would agree that Tim Cook is an excellent leader. He has received several awards over the years. A few examples are Financial Times Person in the year 2014. He received the Ripple of Change Award in 2015. He received a very unique award, which is the highest award that the state of Alabama, his home state, ever awards its citizens. It's called the Academy of Honor, and he received that in the year 2015. Also in the year 2015, he received the Fortune's World's Greatest Leader Award. Very few people would argue that he's a good leader. But are there leadership gaps? How does his leadership align with our leadership criteria? Our criteria comprises of being an excellent communicator, being a strategist, being a motivator, being empathetic, being a visionary, and being accountable. And Cook honestly demonstrates all of these features. However, as a visionary, he does not come across as very bold. He has more of a calm personality. In fact, a lot of people were skeptical at first when he became the CEO of Apple, and they wondered if he would do very well. But that has obviously been proven wrong. As with anything else, there's always room for improvement, and that includes leadership as well. There are so many lessons we can learn from Tim Cook. I love his authenticity. When he took over as CEO of Apple, he stepped into really big shoes. Jobs, his predecessor, had done a phenomenal job. I'm guessing that Cook was under pressure to just follow in the steps of Jobs, but he didn't do that. He stayed true to himself, established his own pattern, and did things the way that he thought he needed to do things. And this has worked out really well. Jobs was said to be more of an autocratic type leader, but Cook is more of a democratic type leader. A man of his status and success who interacts with customers, he responds personally to their emails. He walks into the stores, meets with his staff one-on-one, interacting with them takes a lot of humility. And I find this to be very commendable. When Apple had their stock crisis in 2013, Cook was willing to forfeit some of his own stock. It was worth about $4 million. I see a lot of integrity in that. That's really admirable and very commendable. Another thing we can learn from Cook is his approach to diversity. It's a known fact that Apple is a very diverse environment. Cook is all about inclusion. He donated $100 million to racial equity initiatives. I believe that these personal power skills that he demonstrates, combined to his positional power as CEO of Apple, have helped him become the outstanding leader that he is.
Our group determined what values we believe were needed to be an effective leader. Tim Cook is a proven leader that has led Apple to new horizons during his tenure. Cook was able to separate himself from his predecessor, Steve Jobs, while still displaying some of the same qualities that led to Apple's initial success. He exemplifies all of the characteristics that our group has deemed to be important. Not only has he found success, but he also effectively changed Apple's culture from being an organization surrounded in secrecy to being a place where transparency, social growth, and collaboration thrive. He changed Apple's philosophy from leading top-down. Instead, he shies away from the limelight and attempts to extract the very best from those around him, which he does successfully. While others may doubt his approach to leadership, none can deny his ability to lead Apple into the future. As a group, we can all assess the qualities that Cook exemplifies and find a way to embed those characteristics into our professional lives to be more effective leaders in the future.